Hi everybody, I am Miquel Sandoval, I'm from Argentina, and in this occasion I will present a glimpse of my PhD work, which was about waterlogging in 3 crops in different times and durations. So what we do? As the title said, we test waterlogging in 3 crops: sunflower, soybean, and sorghum. In 3 different moments: in the vegetative stage, in the reproductive stage, and in the grain filling period. So, as we can see in this chart, we test in every crop, sunflower, soybean, and sorghum, 3 moments. Every moment we call of M1, M2, and M3, and then we test 3 duration of waterlogging that we call D1, D2, and D3. And why we did it? So our main objective was to compare these 3 crops under the same growing condition. And this wasn't very easy for us because we need to design our entire experiment to make these waterlogging moments match in field in the 3 crops. So to make this happen, we settled some experiments in field in our region to evaluate waterlogging. But first, we calculate what's the chance of some waterlogging of any duration occur in our region. So as we can see in this bar chart, we have for sunflower, soybean, and sorghum different probability on depend of the duration of the event. For example, as the first thing that we can see is above 10 days, waterlogging probability is very low. We have as well 2 different water initial condition in soil, 50 and 100 millimeters at 1 meter long, 1 meter depth. After that, we calculate when we need to sow our every crop to make the waterlogging treatment match in field for the 3 crops. And with this information, we create our experiment and then we start just trying. So now we are seeing a picture of the experiments belong that 2022. In this case, we have 2 experiments. So in the back of the photo, we have a water experiment of moment and duration of waterlogging. So in this case, we test 3 days and 7 days of waterlogging in the 3 moments and in the 3 crops. On the other hand, in this experiment, we have the 3 crops and the 3 moments, but test just 7 days of duration of waterlogging. We can see here this experiment was made in 4 blocks. It was a strip plot experiment. So we have in these lines the crops. In this case, we have soybean, but we have sorghum and sunflower in the other lines. And in the columns, we have the waterlogging moments. In this case, this is a witness or control. So the combination between them makes a waterlogging moment for or waterlogging treatment for every crop. What we are watching now in the yellow circle is back there the weather station, and here in the bottom we have the pumps that we use to flood the field. So about the results, we separate them in two results. in two sections. In this slide, we are going to see the results for waterlogging moment, which means 7 days of duration of waterlogging. So we can see here for the field 1 experiment, we have two experiments in this section. In this case, this belongs to one of the years. We have yield, we have grain weight, and we have grain number. All the values are presented as a percentage of the reduction of control treatment. So that's why we have a percentage. Then we can see sunflower here, over here, and then we have these three columns that belongs to soybean, and then we have these three columns that belong to sorghum. And well, we have the three moments of that we evaluate in this experiment. So we have M1 belongs to the waterlogging during the vegetative stage. Then we have the M2, the gray column that belongs to the early reproductive stage or the critical period. And then we have the white columns, this and this and this, that belongs to the grain filling period. So we found that we have two different responses in this case. Every time that you see a letter A, that means no difference between among these treatments. And then we have the letter V in this case that belongs to waterlogging during the vegetative stage in sunflower. Same things or similar things happens in the field 2 experiment. But in this case, we found differences between waterlogging in sunflower during the vegetative stage and waterlogging in sunflower during the reproductive stage, the early reproductive stage. Now we can see the results from the essay of waterlogging moment and duration treatment. So in these cases, we evaluate 3 days and 10 days of waterlogging. This bar chart shows similar results than the experiments that we saw before, but in this case, we have for every moment of waterlogging 2 durations. So we have 3 days and 10 days of waterlogging. So the two first columns belongs to 3. So the first column belongs to 3, then to 10 days of waterlogging during the vegetative stage. Then we have 3 and 10 days for the early reproductive state, and then we have 3 and 10 days for the late reproductive state. And same things happened in soybean and in sorghum. For the field 3 experiment and for the field 4 experiment that belongs to different years. And what that you can see here is we found 3 different responses. On the one hand, the letter A, we found that soybean and sorghum didn't differ between treatments. So they didn't reduce yield or any component. And then we have for sunflower 2 different responses. On the one hand, we have that 3 days of waterlogging during the vegetative state, then 3 and 10 days of waterlogging during the early reproductive state, and 10 days of waterlogging during the late reproductive state or grain filling, reduce yield, but 10 days of waterlogging during the vegetative stage was the main reduction, which is interesting because didn't happen in the normal critical period for sunflower, which is between R1 to R6. So to summarize this information, we create this table in where we put all the information together for both experiment and all the years. So we can see here is for every crop and for every moment and duration of waterlogging, we have 3, 7, and 10 days, the direction of the effect and the strength. And we have in red when the effect was statistically significant, and in yellow when we found some evidence that the yield or the other component reduce against the control, but this evidence isn't very strong. So, for example, we can see here that for sunflower, we have the main responses during the vegetative stage for 7 and 10 days, and 3 days as well, but it was higher, the effect between 7 and 10 days. We have some effect as well for sunflower during the early reproductive state, but in these cases, for 3 days, the response was very, very low. And then again, in grain filling period only for 10 days of waterlogging, we found some evidence that the yield was reduced. For soybean as well, on the contrary, we found that only during the reproductive state we found some responses of reduction of yield. And finally, for sorghum, we didn't found any responses. So this information.
So with this information, we have concluded that the waterlogging event, the critical period for a waterlogging event, isn't the same in every crop. For example, in sunflower, we found that before the R1 phenological stage, which is during the vegetative state, the waterlogging or any waterlogging event under 10 days of duration, it is worse than for yield reduction or any component than the same event happened before that period. In soybean, on the other hand, we found that the critical period or normal critical period results to be the more damage for this crop, and this means that it is the same period that for other stresses. And in sorghum, we found that, or we didn't found any change or any damage in this crop for waterloggings of 10 days of duration or less than in any moment. So we didn't found evidence in sorghum that this period of waterlogging makes some change in this crop. So for me, that's all. I will say thanks to everyone. Thanks for listening to me. Gracias, and Nasrabi.